Our newscast tonight, the Korean government continues efforts to control the MERS virus. The president postpones her U.S. diplomacy trip to stay home and focus on public safety. The joint South Korea WHO MERS team recommends schools reopen as they're unlikely to spread the virus, and all confirmed cases came from hospitals affected by the disease. And as the outbreak prompts concerns over the economy's feeble recovery pace, we take an in-depth analysis of where it may be headed with Thomas Byrne, Senior Vice President of Moody's. These and much more coming up next.
Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Wednesday, June 10th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us.
President Park Geun-hye has decided to delay her trip to the U.S., scheduled to kick off on Sunday, in response to the growing public anxiety over the MERS outbreak.
The two allies have agreed to resettle a new date for their summit talks as soon as possible. Our Choi Yoo-sun starts us off.
In a statement read by her press secretary on Wednesday, President Park Geun-hye said she has decided to postpone her U.S. visit, with public safety topping her priority list.
President Park has decided to postpone her U.S. trip to ensure public safety, including a prompt eradication of the MERS virus.
Members of both political parties and the general public have expressed concerns about the president's potential absence in the midst of the MERS scare, especially when the outbreak is expected to hit a critical turning point in the coming days. The Park administration has come under fire for its insufficient initial response to the outbreak, and that has caused the president's approval ratings to drop by as much as 6 percentage points. The ruling Saenuri party said it respects the president's decision, saying she took into account the current social and economic sentiment. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy said President Park made the right decision to give the situation several more days to determine whether the outbreak can be managed. In a likely response to concerns about the possible diplomatic consequences of delaying the trip, Korea's presidential office said Seoul and Washington have agreed to reschedule President Park's visit as soon as possible. With North Korea's continued security threats and rising questions about South Korea's diplomatic voice in Northeast Asia, President Park's U.S. trip will be pivotal to guiding her foreign policy forward. And the speed with which the trip is rescheduled will be a testament to the strength of the alliance between Seoul and Washington. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
Health authorities are expecting the MERS outbreak to settle down soon, but the number of new confirmed patients rose again today. There are now 108 confirmed MERS cases.
And 2 more patients have died, bringing the total to 9. And for more, we connect to our Connie Kim at the News Center. Hello, Connie. Let's start with the latest figures.
Well, guys, like all previous deaths, the last 2 victims were in hospital with severe illnesses when they contracted the virus. And these latest cases bring the fatality rate to slightly over 8%. And the interesting thing about the 13 cases announced today is that 10 of them are patients at Samsung Medical Center in southern Seoul. This hospital has a whopping 47 cases, nearly half of the country's total. And now about the pregnant woman who tested positive for the virus yesterday at a hospital in Seoul. She is being retested after a negative result in what was supposed to be a final round of testing. Health officials say 11 MERS patients are in critical condition, while more than 3,400 people are in quarantine. There are some good news, too, that another MERS patient has been released, this one from Pyeongtaek St. Mary's Hospital in Gyeonggi-do Province, making that a total of 4 recoveries. The virus now seems to be contained at that hospital with 0 additional infections since Monday.
Well, is the government doing a good job of delivering on their promise of doing everything it can to prevent the spread of the virus so far? I know as a part of this effort, the acting prime minister made new announcements this morning. Connie, could you walk us through those?
I'll break it down into 3 points. First, Korea has designated 4 hospitals as MERS treatment centers for people showing symptoms of the disease, 1 each in Seoul, Gyeonggi-do Province, Daejeon, and Chungcheongnam-do Province. All these regions have confirmed MERS cases, and that brings the number of hospitals treating MERS patients to 16. In addition, Choy said that MERS cannot be transmitted through the air, encouraging people to carry on with their daily lives. And finally, he promised to provide financial support to local governments working to contain the virus. In a separate development, health authorities pledged to financially support those who are in quarantine.
And Connie, the WHO team are currently studying the MERS outbreak in Korea. Any new developments there?
Yes, they recommended Wednesday that schools should reopen as all MERS cases have occurred within hospitals and not schools. The recommendation arrived as school boards called for more schools to be shut down nationwide. And as of today, more than 2,700 preschools and elementary schools had closed. The WHO team will announce their final study results on Saturday upon wrapping up their MERS assessment in Korea.
What about how the fear is spreading outside of Korea in terms of the virus? I heard about travel alerts being prompted. Could you give us more details on that, Connie?
Well, Daniel, Taiwan has expanded its travel alert to include the whole country, an upgrade of its previous alert just for Seoul and Gyeonggi-do Province. And you might also remember Hong Kong issued a red travel alert just yesterday. Now, that's the second highest warning, and it comes with a call for citizens to avoid non-essential trips to Korea. Travel agencies in Hong Kong have canceled all package tours to Korea scheduled for this month. That's 600 programs for 12,000 travelers. A heavy blow to Korea's travel industry, definitely. Meanwhile, 3 Hong Kong residents who visited Korea recently have been quarantined as suspected cases. And according to local health officials, they had not visited any health facilities while in Korea, raising speculation about how they may have contracted the virus. Back to you.
All right, thanks for that report, Connie. And in fact, the WHO provided some assurance on the MERS situation. The health organization says Korea should be able to control the spread.
That's right. Even as we speak, authorities are tracking down all cases that have been in contact with the confirmed patients. Our Son Jung-in shares some experts' views.
The World Health Organization held a news conference on Tuesday at its headquarters in Geneva to share the latest analysis on the MERS outbreak amid growing concerns in and outside of Korea.
Since the start in September 2012, we have 1,190 cases, confirmed cases, including at least 444 deaths.
The WHO specialist on MERS said Korea was not affected by a persistent infection, implying the disease could be brought under control as all subsequent infections in the country were linked to the same chain of transmission. He noted that there has been no case of MERS transmission in the wider community outside of hospitals, but even if there were, it's not a matter that would throw them off guard.
We would not be surprised, we would not be surprised if we see a few cases coming up from the community.
On concerns the virus might have mutated, Barak said the strain in Korea is not that different from previous ones reported in Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia. Experts in related fields have echoed the WHO's assessment, saying the chance of a massive outbreak in Korea is not high and that simple infection control procedures could halt it. The WHO is currently working on a joint mission with Korean doctors and officials to help the country with its response measures, while efforts are underway in research institutions around the world to develop vaccines to combat the virus. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
The 3-day confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Hwang Ji-hye came to an end today, but the jury is still out on whether he will win the National Assembly's approval. Our Kim Young-gil has more.
The 3-day grilling session came to an end on Wednesday with uncertainty looming over Prime Minister nominee Hwang Ji-hye's parliamentary approval.
We wanted our Prime Minister nominee to confront and clarify all the allegations that surrounded him and restart as a clean Prime Minister. Still, many problems are unexplained.
Hwang has been heading the Ministry of Justice since President Park Geun-hye took office in early 2013. Lawmakers from the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy accused the prosecutor turned justice minister of ethical lapses during his public career, specifically receiving a hefty paycheck for facilitating a pardon using his prosecutorial connections in 2012, when he was working with a law firm before becoming justice minister. Hwang also defended himself against accusations of dodging military service in 1980, claiming he had a skin disease that made him unfit for active duty. However, the ruling's Henry Party urged his swift confirmation, pushing to hold a vote this week.
Our hearing committee must evaluate the progress report as quickly as possible, as it's the final stage of the parliamentary procedures.
Hwang said if given the opportunity, he would pursue economic stability and remove unnecessary regulations.
If I get the chance to work as the country's Prime Minister, I will do my best to push the country forward by creating harmony through better communication with the people.
The MPAD will hold a general meeting of its lawmakers on Thursday to discuss the nominee's parliamentary approval. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
North Korea is a rogue nation, says newly appointed Chief of U.S. Pacific Command Admiral Harry Harris. His comments came on Wednesday during a visit to the South Korean Navy's 2nd Fleet Command in Pyeongtaek, some 70 kilometers south of Seoul. Harris paid tribute to 46 South Korean sailors killed in North Korea's 2010 torpedo attack on the Cheonan naval vessel, calling the incident an example of the dangerous and unpredictable nature of the North Korea leadership. He also described Kim Jong-un as an arrogant leader whose regime is discredited by the entire world, adding that Washington remains vigilant in the face of Pyongyang's continued provocations and steadfast in its commitment to South Korea. Korea and Japan will meet this week to discuss ways to address Tokyo's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Seoul's foreign ministry said Wednesday that senior officials from the two sides will meet in Tokyo on Thursday. It will be the 8th such meeting. More than 200,000 women, mostly Koreans, were forced to serve the Japanese military during Japan's colonial rule of Korea in the early 1900s. The talk comes as both countries are seeking a breakthrough in their freight relations ahead of the 50th anniversary of the normalization of bilateral ties on June 22nd. Some encouraging news for Korea on the labor front. Job creation hit a 5-month high last month.
But there is a bumpy road ahead with the MERS outbreak posing some obstacles. Our Kwon So-ah reports.
Almost 380,000 more people had a job in May than in the same month a year ago. That's the biggest on-year increase in 5 months. Both the employment and unemployment rates went up slightly from last year, along with the overall growth in Korea's working population. Statistics Korea said Wednesday the total number of people in work last month stood at slightly under 26.2 million, as more workers were hired in the service and manufacturing sectors, with those in food and lodging doing especially well. The agency attributes the on-year jump to the lower base rate in May last year, coming a month after the Sewolo ferry sinking, and it attributes the on-month jump to the warm, dry weather as the employment sector was hit hard by rainy conditions last month. There is some concern, however, that the improvement may not extend into next month.
Increased spending on leisure and culture led to improvements in the related sectors, but there's a big chance that there will be a downturn in June due to the effects of the MERS virus.
Experts say another concern is the high youth unemployment rate, which is around 2.5 times higher than the overall jobless rate. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Local and global institutions are slashing Korea's growth forecast, with some predicting Asia's 4th largest economy will grow less than 3% this year.
And for more on the outlook of the Korean economy, we have Thomas Byrne, Moody's Senior Vice President and the Asia Pacific Manager of the Sovereign Risk Group. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Thank you.
So, Tom, the Korean government has been focusing its efforts on boosting domestic demand, but the problem now also seems to be the country's slowing exports, mainly caused by sluggish global demand, especially in China, and of course the weak Japanese yen. How should Korea deal with the situation?
Well, there's not much really that any government can do over the near term to boost export growth. This is a phenomena that we see across the board in Asia. And of course, it's very important for Asia because exports have been a key driver of their economic development and their road to prosperity. But it's really up to the industries or the corporations to increase their competitiveness, to move up the value-added chain, to go into innovation. I mean, Samsung has had a lot of success in recent years. So has Hyundai Automobile, and others in other sectors that aren't as visible. What governments can do is to ensure that the investment environment in a country is friendly and it's predictable. And I'm not just talking about foreign investment, but more importantly, domestic investment.
Well, Tom, local institutions, they're expressing deep concerns that low growth could be a continuing trend in Korea, and they fear that we might be going towards a deflation a la Japan. Would you agree with that notion?
With the former more than the latter. But it does look like Korea's potential growth rate, a rather technical calculation, but if all inputs in the economy are fully utilized, that's the growth rate you get. And of course, without having inflation as well. And that's declining. It's probably not 4% now. And the IMF actually sees over in a decade's time, in the next decade, that it could fall to 2% unless structural measures are taken. One of them would be increasing the labor force participation rate, which of course is part of President Park's 474 vision.
So should the government introduce more stimulus measures, and should the central bank further cut its key rate that already stands at a historic low?
Yeah. Well, in a technical sense, we see that Korea has both the fiscal and monetary space to stimulate. However, a government stimulus, whether it's fiscal stimulus or a central bank stimulus, tends to be temporary in nature. In fact, the old axiom is that the best fiscal stimulus is targeted, timely, and temporary, not this ongoing, continual addiction to government spending.
Well, the government says it's trying to claw its way out of the current unfavorable economic condition. They're going to cast a wide net by pushing for structural reforms in labor, education, financial, and public debt. Do you think maybe we should perhaps prioritize and focus more on one particular sector?
Well, you could probably do a as long as the reforms are done thoroughly, I guess that's okay. What we're focusing on as a credit rating agency, of course, is the threat that large, uncontrolled public sector debt in the form of Korea, the corporations, poses to the government's balance sheet, particularly against a backdrop of slowing economic growth. And so government measures taken to date have gained traction, and the debt is being contained. In fact, the debt-to-equity ratios are being reduced slightly. But we think that this is a credit-positive development. In fact, it's probably the key reason that prompted us to change Korea's rating outlook to positive from stable back in April.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Tom, and
Good.
hope to see you again in the
Thank
studio.
You. My pleasure, too. Thank you.
And for the top international headlines, we connect now to our Paulie at the News Center.
Our focus today, FIFA puts on the brakes for the next World Cup bid. Police in Texas offer an apology for using excessive force against black teenagers, and Hollywood rolls out the red carpet for the stars of Jurassic World.
Paul, let's start with the latest blow to FIFA. Football's world governing body has announced it will suspend the bidding process for the 2026 World Cup. What's behind this sudden move?
Well, FIFA Secretary General Laurent Valk said the decision to completely halt bids for the 2026 hosting rights was due to what he called the current situation, obviously referring to the massive corruption scandal engulfing the organization. Valk made the announcement on Wednesday in the Russian city of Samara, one of the 11 cities set to host the 2018 World Cup Games. He also denied allegations related to the U.S. investigation into $10 million in secret bank transactions.
I just want to say that in the meantime, is it true? It is true. I mean, whatever is happening at FIFA, whatever is discussed at FIFA, whatever is said and discussed about FIFA, the World Cup has to be protected. The World Cup is all the basic system of FIFA in order to develop football around the world.
In the meantime, authorities in Italy have confirmed that Argentine businessman Alexandre Bursaco has turned himself into police. Bursaco is wanted by U.S. authorities over his alleged role in the FIFA bribery case. Last week, he was placed on Interpol's red notice list, which also includes several top football officials and corporate executives with close links to FIFA. And turning to the U.S. state of Texas, McKinney's police chief has announced that a white officer who was recorded using excessive force against young black teenagers has resigned. The police called his actions out of control.
As the chief of police, I want to say to our community that the actions of Case Bolt, as seen on the video of the disturbance at the community pool, are indefensible. Our policies, our training, our practice do not support his actions. He came into the call out of control.
Police Corporal Eric Casebold had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into his behavior while breaking up a pool party last Friday. Video taken by a witness at the scene has since raised fresh concerns over racial bias in American police forces. And finally, the next chapter in Hollywood's popular dinosaur franchise, Jurassic World, is set to destroy theaters worldwide this Friday. Stars and crew of the sci-fi blockbuster hit the red carpet at the Dolby Theater on Tuesday night for the U.S. premiere. They said the movie was made by and for the fans of the original Jurassic Park that was released in 1993.
This franchise was very important in our minds. That was something we never forgot. This is a movie for fans, made by fans of the franchise, and you know what? I saw it the other day, and it's awesome, and people are going to love it, and I can't wait to hear what people think.
Directed by Colin Trevorrow, Jurassic World takes place 22 years after the events of the first film, as a new bioengineered creature wreaks havoc on a remote island. It's expected to pull in over $120 million in its opening weekend. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Most of the nation experienced a severe heat wave today. The high in Seoul soared to 34.9 degrees this afternoon, the hottest June temperature on record. And the first ozone alert of the year was issued in the capital from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And that means unhealthy air due to high levels of emissions. So taking public transportation is recommended when the alert is in place. And the drought is worsening across the nation. And even some parts of the country are resorting to traditional rain-calling ceremonies. But good news, that much-needed rain is in the forecast for tomorrow. Seoul will see rain start the mid-afternoon, while the rest of the country can expect to see showers falling earlier in the day. And the temperature will be 3 to 10 degrees lower than today, so let's take a closer look. The daytime high here in Seoul will rise to 30, and Daegu and Gwangju will peak at 26 and 28, while Busan climbs to 23 tomorrow afternoon. And as for the other regions, it seems like Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 28 and 27, while Dokdo peaks at 23. Now, don't forget to have an umbrella handy before heading out today, and it's time to take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world.
So peaceful without the raptors and tyrannosaurs in there. Well, that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for staying with us. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Please join us at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.